Okay, good morning. How's everybody? We're in Revelation 5 this morning. Last week we looked at the 7 churches, as you remember, and we left this drawing up here. We saw those churches were located in Turkey, and we know that John was just off the coast on the Isle of Patmos, and he was writing the book of Revelation from Jesus Christ. So today we're going to look, and we saw him be raptured up into heaven, and he saw that the church was there. And so today we're going to be looking at something that's really important, what he saw, and he saw a scroll. And so we're in Revelation 5, and the Revelation 5 begins by describing a person, him who sat on the throne. Some people believe that's Jesus, but this, from my studies, it tells me that this is God the Father who is sitting on the throne. And he has a scroll, and he's holding that. And let's talk about a scroll just for a minute. Back then, a scroll had two either pieces of wood or something that was carved, or maybe was made out of clay and fired, so it was like porcelain or something. But there were 2 of these, and the scroll was rolled on them, and so you could read the scroll, and as you did, you would turn it, and it would wind the scroll up on the other one. This is what John saw. And what we find is that the scroll was especially sealed for a will and testament of somebody back in those days. The scroll would have the will of the person who was alive, and that will would then apply when they died. In this particular instance, this scroll was written on front and back, which was highly unusual, which tells us that there was a lot on this scroll. From my studies, I believe that what was on that scroll was the rest of history that was going to happen during the tribulation and during the 1,000-year reign of Christ, and then, of course, into eternity with the new heaven and the new earth and the city Jerusalem. So this scroll then was the history, or if you want to think of it as the will and testament of God for the rest of history. It had 7 seals. Back then, if you had a will, you would tie 7 pieces of cord, and each would be sealed with wax. And there was usually a ring that had a signet or a seal on it, and that would be pushed into the wax while it was still soft and warm. And then as the wax cooled, that seal would actually be on there. And the only way to open that scroll was to break that seal and untie that. Well, John saw a scroll that had 7 of these seals on them. And he cried, we're told, in Revelation 5. John was weeping because there was no one found, as far as he could tell, that could open, or who was qualified to open the scroll. Now, he was told that the line of the tribe of Judah that's mentioned in Genesis 49, and that the root of David that's mentioned in Isaiah 11 would be able to open these seals and therefore open the scroll to see what the rest of history was going to be. And there was a lamb that was able to open that scroll. And the picture of the lamb is a lamb who had already been slain and yet was alive and was able for its blood to continually cleanse people of sin, even though it had been slain, because it was now alive. And yet that blood still had the power all through history. And it also had that power, or will have that power, during the tribulation. Okay? And there were, in Revelation 5, 9 through 10, we're told there, we're actually given the words of the song that was sung about this Lamb, worshiping this Lamb, which we know is Jesus Christ. Now let's look at each one of these seals. What we want to keep in mind is the rapture has happened. We learned that last week. And now, as John he's in heaven, but he's looking down, if you want to think of it this way, on the earth to see what happens throughout history. And each seal represents a time, a short time period in the tribulation. When the seal is open, something happens. When the next seal is open, something happens. And John sees all of this. So let's look at each of the seals and let's see what happens with each one. When the first seal is broken and the string is untied, the breaking of the seal releases a white horse. That white horse is called the Conqueror. We know it describes the conqueror with having a crown and having a bow. Some people mistakenly think, okay, that's got to be Jesus Christ because it's a white horse and the person on it has a crown. Well, I want you to give some thought to the fact that white horse who will conquer and who obviously is a world leader is Antichrist. So we know from other scriptures that we've looked at that when the church is raptured, that which holds back Antichrist is no longer holding back, and we know that Antichrist is revealed. And so the very first horse of 4 that we're going to look at is Antichrist, being revealed and stepping up and becoming in the position that he wants to be, and that is the leader of the world. Now he is influenced and he is taken over by Satan. When the second seal is opened, a red horse comes. And the red horse, I've defined it here, the scripture says that he will bring conflict on the earth. What actually happens when the red horse is seen is peace is taken from the earth. So it's kind of the other side of the coin. When he comes, peace will be removed. Now this is connected to the white horse also and to Antichrist. So during the tribulation, you have Antichrist being revealed. He begins to come to power, and the next thing that starts happening is peace is taken from the earth. Now that we know from Scripture, the Antichrist is going to say, I can bring peace to the earth. And people of the world and Israel will actually believe that and follow him. But in truth, God is at that moment preparing to take peace from the world. And what God is bringing on during the tribulation is his wrath on the world and on the Jewish people in order to try to bring them to him during the tribulation. When the third seal is broken, there's a black horse that comes. And this black horse is associated with famine because food, we're told, will be scarce on the earth. It's really interesting to me that the scripture says that the more expensive, delicate type, rich foods will still exist. But the typical food that the world eats will be involved in a famine. So there will still be people who have money who can afford the richer foods. But the things that grow, the crops, all of that will experience famine. And then finally, the fourth horse is called the pale horse. And this horse represents widespread death on the earth. As a matter of fact, we're told there in that scripture in Revelation 6 that a fourth of everybody on the planet Earth will die. A fourth. So this is going to be a severe time. Beginning with Antichrist, then peace being removed, and then famines and lack of food, and then death. When the fifth seal is opened, the martyrs, we're told, will be able to cry out to God the Father. And these represent the saints who have been killed in that tribulation time, and probably prior to that time, from the Pentecost on. But these are believers who are in heaven, and they cry out and ask God, how long will it be before you take vengeance? And his answer to them is, you need to rest for a while. This tells me that that God, it's not at the point yet that God is going to take vengeance for people who killed them. That will happen later during the tribulation. And then the sixth seal is open. And here, once it's opened, there are cosmic disturbances throughout the universe and here on earth. These are the kinds of changes in the universe and in the weather and in the heavens and in the earth that are described prior to the coming of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. Because at the end of the tribulation, Christ will bring us, the church, with Him, and we will come and with Him, and we will help Him establish the 1,000-year reign. But that's what the sixth seal represents. All those disturbances that happen. Then we kind of take a little break here, John does. Jesus gives John a vision of a couple other things. John sees 144,000 who had been sealed by God. These are Jews who had who believed in Jesus Christ during the first part of the tribulation, the first 3.5 years. And they began to teach and preach about Jesus Christ. And they were sealed so that they wouldn't be killed as they began to witness for Jesus Christ. And this is the beginning of the harvest that God has among the Jews during the tribulation. And at some point, they do give their life for Jesus Christ. Because Antichrist, when at the middle of the tribulation, he puts himself into the temple that has been rebuilt, and he makes himself, he says he's God, and anybody that won't worship him is killed. Also, John says he saw a great multitude of martyrs, and these are other people who accepted Jesus during the tribulation, and they gave their life for it. You see, when the church is raptured, there will be people on the earth that may have heard about Jesus. There will be people on the earth that may not have. They will not be raptured, but they will go into the tribulation. During that time, they have an opportunity to accept Jesus Christ. Now, they're more than likely, they're going to lose their life if they do. The Antichrist will be against anybody who doesn't worship him as God. And then our final seal this morning is the seventh seal in Revelation 8, the first 6 verses. When that seal is opened by the Lamb, by Jesus Christ, something happens that would be very unusual. And I'm going to show you right now what happens. Total silence for a half an hour. Now that's a long time for there to be no sound. There's total silence for a half an hour. What this is saying is, get ready. Something's going to happen, and it's big. Well, we know from reading on, and we'll look at this next week, we know that angels, 7 with a trumpet, there are 7 trumpets that blow. And those trumpets blow in preparation for the return of Jesus Christ with His church. Now, today, I don't know whether you've heard them. I wish I had them on my phone right now. I'd play it so you can hear them. You can go out and look on the internet and you can find all kinds of recordings where people have recorded them. Especially this month in January. People all over the world, Australia, Denmark, Bend, Oregon, all over are hearing trumpets. And if you've heard the shofar, the ram's horn that's blown, they sound like that. And they're in the heavens. They're nothing that you can go over across the street and say, there's what made that noise. They're in the heavens. I don't know if you've ever heard an orchestra that's warming up, all these different instruments, and they're kind of warming up. And it just sort of sounds like confusion, and yet you can hear the instruments. But when they get ready to play, and the orchestra leader is getting them ready, and then he or she begins, when they play together, it's beautiful music. My position on all this is these are warnings from God that the time is very short. And so He's giving us, almost like His angels practicing until the event happens. And then they all blow them at once all around the world at the same time. What a sound that's going to be. Because right now the sounds that people are recording, it's got them upset if they're not believers. They don't know what in the world's going on. They're actually afraid, some of them. We know as believers we don't need to be afraid of when the trumpet sounds. So next week we're going to look at 7 trumpets. And these are not the same trumpet that is blown when Jesus Christ comes to take the church. These that are being heard in the heavens right now are in preparation for when they all blow at once and we're raptured. These 7 trumpets are about things that are going to be happening on the earth after the things happened that the seals, when they were broken, happened. What we're going to see is that the trumpet things that happen are worse than the seals, the things that happen. And we're going to see as we move through the trumpets and then into the bowls and so forth, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And the last part of the tribulation will just be unbearable almost to mankind. God's wrath will be so strong against this earth. So next week we'll pick up the seals, reflect on what John saw here with the various seals that were open, and next week we'll pick up on the trumpets and we'll look at each trumpet. So God bless your day, and give someone one of our Bible tracts that says, "Where are you going?" And then on the back it says, "Have you made the right choice?" Very simple, but very powerful in helping bring people to Jesus Christ. Take these and leave them around. Give them to people that you talk to. God bless your week.